Here we go. Hello, Angela. If you want, you can introduce yourself, let people know who you are and what you're running for.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time and giving me the opportunity to speak to the folks from Abundance Denton. My name is Angela Brewer. I'm running for mayor of Denton. Super excited. Denton's my hometown. I grew up here and I really love this community. I've been in and out as an adult, but came back when I had a child because I definitely wanted to raise him in the town I grew up in. And so I've been back in Denton for about 8 years now and really eager to kind of preserve the heart of our community as we get bigger and bigger. We all know our population's growing, and I want to make sure that Denton stays Denton as we get new neighbors moving in. So that's what motivated me to get into the mayor's race this year. We've got lots of amazing things going on in our community that I really want to preserve and lean into and make sure we hold on to for our future. But then we also have some real gaps that we need to fill, and I think it's one of the topics that Abundance Denton's really been working on around transportation and affordable housing are probably our two biggest gaps that we need to work on solving those problems in Denton as we move to this really rich future I think that we can have together.
Yes, I love this vision you have for Denton, so I'm really excited. We are going to go ahead and get right into the questions, and I will start. The first three questions are public transit based.
Yeah.
So, question number one: what is your experience using public transit? Have you used
Yeah.
things like GoZone, Connect buses, or the A train?
Yeah, so my personal experience has been I've tried using public transportation, particularly with GoZone. The part of town I live in, we don't have bus service over here. So there are no routes for me to use. So GoZone's really my only public transportation option in my neighborhood in Northeast Denton. So I have a couple of times tried to use GoZone to mostly to go downtown for festivals, like when parking's really terrible downtown and we don't want to try to get there. I've also tried to do GoZone to go to a football game over at UNT. Same thing. I don't want to pay to park over there, so I was trying to use GoZone. My problem is I would order the GoZone in the app, and it would be like, "Oh, 20 minutes," and I'm like, "Cool." And I'd finish getting ready, and then I would look again, and it'd be like, "Oh, 20 more minutes," and it just kept getting longer and longer. And I'm like, I don't have a firm deadline of when I need to arrive where I'm going to arrive because I was just going out for fun, but I do want to arrive. I'm dressed, I'm ready to go, like I'm ready to have a good time. So both of the times that I've tried to use GoZone, I actually canceled it and just took my car and parked instead of using GoZone. My husband has some experience using A Train. He works out of the country, and so he goes to the airport a lot. Often I can go and get him. Often I cannot. And so he's gotten pretty good at negotiating using DART and A Train to get back to Denton. It's worked well for him, except that it takes about 2 hours to get from DFW Airport to Denton. It takes us 40 minutes in the car. So it's a great idea. He is a very deep believer in public transportation. He would love to be able to have me like just drop him off over at the train station and hop on the train and get to the airport. But if he has, a 6 a.m. flight, that doesn't actually work when it takes 2 hours to get there. And so we're one of those Denton families, I think, that's really eager to use public transportation if there was a robust public transportation system for us to use. We are a one car family and we want to keep ourselves a one car family because that's what works in our budget. We do not want to add another car payment, insurance, gasoline, and maintenance for a second car. Uh, I honestly right now don't know how we would make a second car fit into our budget. I don't think we could. So I am very aware of, if he wasn't working out of the country, if he was here every day, it would be very difficult for us to stay a one car family because we don't have access to public transportation in the northeast part of Denton at all. So my personal experience is very limited, but my desire to use public trans for myself and my family and our greater community. Like we need, if we're going to be a real city, we need to have real public transportation. So I have a lot of desire to really grow this system to something that's really usable and like fully functional because right now it just doesn't function.
For sure, for sure. Well, question number two, accessibility is a big issue in public transit. How do you plan to work with DCTA to address things like lack of safe sidewalks, unprotected bus stops, low route coverage, stuff like that.
Right. We absolutely have to build a real, robust public transportation system in Denton. We have a great vision for the future of our city. I was recently doing a questionnaire and it asked, "Where do you see your city 20 years from now?" I was like, man, love that question because I have so much optimism for what we could be in Denton, right? Like we have huge opportunity to grow into this really flourishing, accessible city available for everyone. Whether you're like making buku bucks and at the top of the ladder and you've got your fancy car to drive and you're going to drive and park everywhere, or you're working hard for a living and on an hourly wage, or got your salary coming in, or you're part of our creative community and you're really pinching pennies and trying to make your budget meet at the end of every month. We should have a transportation system that serves everyone and serves everyone safely. That's the only way we can create a city and a community for everyone. Public transportation is critical to having a community built for everyone. I desperately want to keep Denton a community for everyone. I think it has been for a long time. I think the last few years have gotten really difficult for folks on kind of the bottom half of the income earning brackets. And if we continue to let it be difficult for those folks, we're going to lose those folks in our community. Um, and, so much about what Denton is, like the spirit and the reason we all like to be here, that Denton vibe, it is because of the people who live here. And if we can't create an affordable city for all of the people to live in, then we're not going to have a lot of those folks who really contribute to the heart of our community. And not just the creative folks. Like I'm thinking about first responders and healthcare employees and teachers. Good grief, like trying to make things ends meet on a teacher's salary is really challenging. And I hate the idea. And this happens in other communities where teachers who teach in that public school system don't actually live in the community because they can't afford to live in the community. And Denton just cannot become that, right? So we have to have public transportation in order to make sure we are affordable for everyone, and we remain an economically diverse city. So thinking about those specific accessibility issues, that means growing our bus lines. The cuts that happened a few years ago when we brought GoZone in and got rid of a lot of our bus routes, uh, I'm just gonna call it a failed experiment. Maybe it was worth trying. I don't think it was worth trying, but maybe it was worth trying. We've tried it now. It didn't work. Let's get rid of this, right? Get rid of Go Zone, bring back real bus routes. I think we can play around a little bit on the budget on maybe some of the routes having smaller buses. So we don't have to necessarily invest in a bunch of full size buses. We can maybe run those half size buses and on some routes that have a little bit lower ridership. But when we do that, we'll be able to expand route accessibility so that parts of town like mine in Northeast Denton that doesn't have bus service right now could have bus service, which can make a real difference to families in this part of Denton and other underserved parts of Denton where we
Mhm.
didn't have to try and depend on a very unreliable go zone situation. We've got a real sidewalk problem in this town, like, and it affects lots of things, not just public transportation. Like, it just affects the way kids can play in their neighborhoods, and it affects the way people can walk just for fitness and mental health, right? Like, there's some pretty profound situations we have with lack of sidewalks, and I think usually in some of the older neighborhoods, right, where they just didn't build sidewalks as developments were coming in. So, looking forward, I think we need to, first of all, make sure any new development in town includes sidewalks as a part of that development. That needs to be a part of what the developers are responsible for putting in. And then also thinking about how do we go back into some of our older neighborhoods where sidewalks are missing and start filling in these missing spots. And then obviously we can do that through just analyzing data and see where they're most needed first and start with those sidewalks. So, and particularly places where we're going to run bus routes, making sure that there are sidewalks compatible or adjacent to those bus routes. And then making our bus stops real bus stops, not benches with weeds growing around them or often just a sign, right? Like that. That's the bus stop. It's a sign sticking up right there. And you're like, cool. What do I do while I'm waiting? What do I do if it's raining? What do I do? So we need to really focus on bus stops that are healthy and safe for people to use and comfortable for people to use. Um, I often hear people who are critical of public transportation talk about it as, well, nobody uses it. And I'm like, you haven't made it user friendly. Nobody wants to use what has existed, right? Because there aren't great sidewalks. So getting from my house to a bus stop might be a really uncomfortable, sometimes dangerous walk. There
Mhm.
aren't there aren't benches to sit on or shelter from the rain. So how can I wait for a bus if there's no place really for me to wait? I'm standing in the weeds next to a sign, right? And then if there aren't adequate routes that get within, a 10-minute walk of my house, then how am I really supposed to use that in an effective way? Um, I think public transportation in a city like ours is one of those things, like, if you build it, they will come, very much that kind of a situation. I talk to families every day who are interested in using public transportation but can't because it's so difficult to use. And I actually I was visiting with the city manager a couple of weeks ago, and she said, "Well, 95% of our bus users are students at UNT, so UNT really needs to take on some of the burden of running these public transportation systems." I'm like, "Well, nice lady, y'all cut all the other bus routes. So of course it's only students using it right now because that's the only place that you run bus service is to student apartments and campus. So yeah, I am not surprised that that's the current ridership. But if you increase the bus routes, you increase access, you're going to increase your ridership because people have a desire, particularly in tough economic times, particularly where it just cost me $60 to refill my gas tank when a month ago it was only 40. That you have people who really have an interest in public transportation if it was actually functional and useful.
For
So,
sure, for sure. Well, our third question actually kind of ties into a little bit about what you were saying with Go Zone
mm,
earlier. So I feel like you have answered this, but I'd love to know if
yeah,
there are more specifics. For question number three,
yep.
Dentonites have said that Go Zone is inefficient, unreliable, uncomfortable. How does
Mhm.
Go Zone factor into your plans for public transit?
Ooh, this is an easy, quick answer. Usually I say too much, but this one's fast. We need to get rid of it. It's just a failed experiment. It's time for it to go. Uh, like I said before, it was worth trying, I guess. But now we know this does not work for our community, and we need to get rid of GoZone, recover the money that we've invested, that we're currently spending in the GoZone program, and put that into an actual public transportation program instead of this weird fake Uber, whatever this thing is, where you get to become best friends and close neighbors with whoever randomly gets picked up on your ride. Yikes. So, yeah, quick answer, short answer. We're done. We're done with GoZone.
Right on. Well, the next few questions, there's three left, have to do more with housing.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
question number four, do you have any plans to expand resources for our unhoused population?
Yeah. So I think Denton in the last couple of years has really started moving toward a more comprehensive plan for the unhoused population and for those folks who are homeless now but are interested in becoming housed. I think the changes that Our Daily Bread has put in place, where they're doing real case management for every person who comes in for service, where they're really helping people get work and build income to then move them into transitional housing to hopefully then move them into less supported housing as they sort of move through a cycle. I think this is exactly what we need to be doing. We just need to do more of it. I really appreciate communities that do these full wraparound services that are long-term plans. I don't think you can ask a person who has fallen into homelessness, if you just like get them an apartment, stick them there, and be like, "Cool, you're housed. We're good." That doesn't work. That there are a lot of reasons people end up homeless in the first place, and that we have to do the casework, have social workers available to help people work on all of the struggles they're facing that put them on the street in the first place, and start working through those issues so that they can have sustained housing. And what I would like to see us do is to continue working on that. We've taken some really good steps as far as the services that Our Daily Bread is offering, as far as the Denton Affordable Housing Corporation having more affordable housing available, and really looking at transitional housing apartment complexes where they've got one coming, I think it's 84 at McAdams Haven, 84 units where the casework that people began at Our Daily Bread with those wraparound services is going to continue into the apartment. And so then we really are helping people kind of strengthen themselves and stand up straight and get their problems solved so that hopefully they'll then be able to move out of the McAdams Haven with the wraparound services into kind of a less case managed apartment after that or home after that. And so I think the track we're on is good. Uh, our problem right now is just caseload, that we don't have enough case managers or enough funding to hire case managers to support everyone who needs access to this help. So it really is just a budget question of how much money we want to put into supporting those supportive services to keep people moving on that kind of a trajectory to get them back in housing that they'll be able to live in. Couple more things I want to say about that. It is important that we don't separate people who have been homeless, get them an apartment that's separated from their community and expect them to succeed. That that doesn't work. It wouldn't work for any of us. If I had to move to a new place where I didn't have any of my friends around me, where I was now a long way from my job or um, my favorite places to shop or my favorite restaurants, like that would be challenging for me. And I have lots of resources and don't have some of the trauma and struggles that folks are dealing with. So when we take a person who is experiencing homelessness and we separate them from their community and drop them into some affordable apartment over on the edge of town, and they don't have access to their friends anymore, and there isn't public transportation for them to see their friends, and maybe it's a long way to get to work, like they're not, we're setting them up to fail, right? Which is a terrible, terrible thing to do when your goal is to help. I think those efforts come from a place of compassion. Like there is a real, the heart is to help, but the logistics isn't actually helpful. So I want to be sure we keep that in mind, that folks need to stay connected with their community and their friends as we're finding housing. And then I had another thing I wanted to say and it just left my head. So maybe it'll come back later.
Of course. Well, we have only a couple left, so
Okay.
let's see. Question number 5. Um, Rent continues to increase to absurd levels here in Denton. How would you address this issue?
Yeah. Wow. I, when we get kind of down to the nuts and bolts of our city council and the decisions our city government makes, the affordability of transportation and housing are the two most critical issues we're facing in our community right now, which is one of the reasons I was so glad that I met you, Alexandria, in Abundance Denton, and knowing that there is a group of community activists who are working on those two issues because they really are. It's like the keystone, right? Like it's the thing that if we can s- solve that problem long term, but at least start affecting real change around those problems of affordable housing and affordable transportation, we can make significant changes in people's lives, right? Like their real day to day lives. So thinking about rent and how much it costs to live in Denton right now just to keep a roof over your head is, first of all, a part of how we work on our homelessness problem, right? Like homelessness is one of the primary causes of homelessness is that people can't pay their rent like that it
Yeah.
becomes unaffordable to pay for a place to live. So it's tackling parts of that problem, but then it's also just relieving budgets for most people and keeping people out of homelessness, right? And that we can make sure folks can stay in their homes when we make things more affordable. So what I would like to see happen in Denton, first of all, is we stop building these like insane massive apartment complexes around the perimeter of our city. I feel like we're almost like a donut right now. Like we're surrounded by these, like these very big, like sort of faceless, soulless apartment complexes, which from what I've heard, I can't like I haven't seen the research, so I probably shouldn't say anything about it, but I've heard there are like 7,000 empty units right now in these massive complexes, which is I this is awful, right? It should have never developed this way. Now it has. What we have to do immediately is put a stop to it. Like we're done. We're done with any of these projects until maybe some future time when that sort of housing is needed again. But right now, we're full. We don't need any more apartments like that. I'm really interested in looking at medium density housing more than the high density housing that we've seen. Infill development, so building medium density housing in open spaces that are inside of our community in what is now that donut hole in the middle of Denton. We've got lots of property in town that I think could be developed by the right kind of developer to be affordable housing for our community, and make our community more walkable when we're filling things in, instead of coming way out where you have to go multiple miles to come into town. Like if you're filling medium density in town, then it becomes easier on transportation for folks. Um, when I say medium density housing, I really am thinking a lot about duplexes, quadplexes, and those
Mhm.
very small kinds of apartment complexes. I'm also interested in condos and like spaces for people to buy, and some more affordable kind of housing, where you might be able to get a condo as your starter home, right? Uh, I'm also interested in starter home neighborhoods. So, recruiting developers to come into town who are building starter homes that are a little bit smaller and more affordable. Maybe they're not tricked out with all the fancy granite and stainless steel and that kind of stuff, but they're more affordable options. So, folks and families who are interested in buying could have an opportunity to buy in Denton something that's affordable for their family. So, I think that addressing the issue of affordable housing and the cost of rent and all of that is really about the mindset of the city council, that we have to have a city council that has set this as a primary goal. I think it needs to be one of our top 5 goals, to really concentrate on solutions to affordable housing. And then how do we put policy in place? How do we recruit the right kinds of developers to build the housing we want? I think what's been happening is developers come to us and say, "Hey, we've got this cool project. You want it? Like, we'll put it right out here." And we're like, "Cool, we need more housing. So go ahead and do that." It's got to be flipped around. We have to start seeking out the kind of developers we want to have in Denton instead of them seeking us out, to build the sort of housing that we most need. It's that missing middle kind of housing, right? That we've got plenty of, 350, $400,000 houses available in Denton. We don't have plenty, but we do have, Section 8 or affordable housing, subsidized housing in Denton. But that stuff in the middle uh, where working folks are just really struggling to make ends meet, that's what's missing. That's what we have to prioritize for future development and housing so that we can bring up those costs down.
I love that. Well, let's see. Our last question is a cost of living question. So to close us out, question number 6. People in Denton struggle to afford cost of living such as transportation, housing, groceries, etc. What do you hope to see the
Mhm.
city do to make living here more affordable?
Yeah. It's such I mean, like I said in my last answer, it's the heart of the matter right now, that we have to, if we're going to save the spirit of Denton, right? Save this community, the culture that we have built, we have to be affordable because it takes every person who lives here now contributing their particular talents and perspectives and ways of living to our community that makes our community, right? I mean, community is the people. And if we can't have all of the people included in what we're doing because it's become unaffordable, then we stop being who we are. And that's why I'm running for mayor. I want to preserve who we are. So when we think about affordability, it's all of the parts we've been talking about so far working together. So, definitely thinking about transportation, positioning families to maybe be able to become one car families. We didn't talk about bike lanes, but I think that might be another piece of our solution, right? That if a family could go from being 2 cars to one car and some decent bikes, right? That might be a really good option, for our community as far as affordability goes and helping families save money. I think some of the ways that we have to do that are really thinking about more neighborhood centric development. So, um, right now in Denton, we kind of have some retail hubs, and that's where most new retail goes in and restaurants go in. But I think we need to sort of shift our ideas about. Really investing in neighborhoods and and community spirit within a neighborhood. We've got a few neighborhoods in Denton that I think really lean into this already, and we can use them as models. So, for example, there's the John B. Denton neighborhood, heart of Denton, kind of over. just north of UNT, kinda I call it real Denton, not to offend anyone, but it's the stuff around the old Denton High School, right? And all of those homes that came in post World War II, and they've been here a while, and these are very well established neighborhoods, and I think people move there very intentionally, and they've created a very strong neighborhood association that's interested in preserving the historic nature of their neighborhood, and they're doing things like building their own park. Like the city hasn't put a park there, so they've gotten together um, and created a park for themselves. They've done advocacy around road construction because their roads have been torn up for a while now, and I really want to see the whole city uh, be more like that, where we're really leaning into neighborhoods. And then providing resources so people can be in their neighborhood. So thinking about like, do we have just sort of small grocery store access in every neighborhood of town, and get rid of food deserts, and that makes things more affordable. Because if I could walk to a grocery store, that would be amazing. I would love that. It would be fundamentally change the way we run our family. Um, I did live with a grocery store behind me once, and it really did. I mean, we would go to the grocery store with our little wagon that we pulled, and we would go 2 or 3 times a week, and it would be part of, like, our evening family time that we'd take a walk over to the store, grab stuff for dinner and lunches, and then we would come home, and we would do that 3 or 4 times a week, and it kept us better on budget, it saved us on food waste, like, it was great. And so I would like to see some of those things happen in Denton. I also, on affordability, I really want city resources to be affordable for families. And not just families, but individuals, anyone in Denton who is interested in some affordable entertainment, affordable getting out. So, we have to keep strong libraries and great parks. We have to, I mean, it costs $14 to get into the water park now. Like, that seems ridiculous to me. It's a city resource funded through tax dollars. Like, it shouldn't cost me $14 to get into it. So things like the Civic Center pool, where it only costs $5 to get in, those kinds of resources, I think we need to keep. All of the festivals that our town is kind of famous for and that we love so much, we've canceled 2 festivals in Denton
Mm.
just as a budget savings. One coming up in April, the Redbud Festival, which has been around for 30 years. They just canceled because they didn't wanna spend money on it, from the city, and I'm like, "Well, that doesn't work." Like, that's part of what keeps us, us. It's part of what keeps families entertained at an affordable cost, is having those sorts of events and public resources available. So those are a few ideas. There are also 28 more, so we can, definitely talk more
Oh,
about those
yeah.
in other formats.
I was gonna say, I wish we could talk about this forever, but we have a couple minutes left. So with those
People
last
lose
couple
attention on
minutes,
watching these videos, so yeah.
is there where can people find you or information about your campaign? Is there any last thing you wanna say real quick in our last couple minutes?
Yeah, well, the last thing I would wanna say is I am super interested in everyone's ideas. Like, I just gave you, 3 or 4 of my ideas on how we make Denton more affordable, but I do not have all of the answers. I'm not running for mayor because I think I know best and think that I know everything. I'm running for mayor because I wanna have conversations with Dentonites, and I do not have one doubt in my mind that there isn't a problem going on in this town that we can't solve with the ingenuity and talent of this town. That Denton is like overflowing with really smart, creative, thoughtful, compassionate people, and we can solve our problems. It just takes a leader who is creating space for those conversations. It takes a leader who is interested in listening to what people have to say, taking in all of the ideas, never assuming that I know best and that let me tell you how the community ought to function. It's really the reverse. Like, I want to be mayor because I want our city council to listen to the people of Denton for a change. And I think when we start doing that, we're going to come up with so many creative ideas on how to address the problems our community has. And that then positions us to really put the policies in place that we need to build the Denton we want to have in our future. So that's why I ran for mayor this year in particular, because we have a real big opportunity this year. We have 4 seats on the city council that are going to be held by somebody new after May, or maybe after June if there's a runoff. Right? We have a new city manager coming in. We need to hire a new police chief. I mean, there's a lot of
Mhm.
change going on in Denton this year. And some people have approached me and said, that makes me nervous. I was like, really? it makes me so excited because
That's good to hear. It
you
makes me excited too.
yeah, because you just don't get an opportunity like this very often to have sort of a it's almost like a do-over, right? Like, it's almost like a, "Hey, this is a great chance for us to be like, hey, we're gonna set a clear change in direction for our city." It's a fresh start, right?
Well,
And I think that, um, I'm the best candidate for mayor because I bring in that communication skill set. I'm a team builder, I'm a collaborator. I've spent my entire career for 25 years in classrooms doing collaboration, team building, problem solving as groups. And that's what I think we need in leadership in our city right now. We've got some problems we need to solve. We need to do it as a team. And we have to have a leader who is ready to do that kind of work. So, if you have ideas, please let me know. I'm going to give you a couple of ways to get in touch. First of all, I love sharing my phone number. This is my cell phone. It is 940-595-3449. Uh, Anyone is welcome to call me or send me a text message. Thoughts that you have, ideas, questions, like what are you curious about? I'm a professional yapper. I love talking with folks. So definitely send me a message. And I would love to chat about what's on your mind and your ideas of how you think we could fix things and make things different here. So that's one way to get in touch with me. If you want to follow along with what we're doing, I'm on Facebook because I'm old, and so you can follow me on Facebook at Angela for Denton Mayor, or I think it's Angela Brewer for Denton Mayor. Whatever, it's Angela for Denton. You'll find me on Facebook. I'm sort of on Instagram, but I'm not a good Instagrammer. So really follow me on Facebook unless you're not on Facebook. Then you should follow my YouTube channel. That's the best place to follow me, I think, because I am taking all the questionnaires I've been writing responses to and I'm turning them into videos. So for all of these issues that are on people's mind, you'll find like a 2 or 3 minute video you can watch about what I'm thinking about that. Uh, Sort of where my brain is and where I would hope to invite the community in to discuss those issues. So on YouTube, I am Angela Brewer for Denton Mayor. So find me there, see what I have up. I'll also be posting a ton of content this week. So this is my make videos week in my schedule. So definitely subscribe so you get notified there. And then there are forums all over town for the next 3 or 4 weeks. So tonight we're at, this is on Monday night, March 23rd, we're at the Denia Recreation Center for the Denia Neighborhood Association. Um, on Good Friday, might be the best one to come to. Good Friday, which is what, April 3rd? No,
I
maybe.
believe
Maybe
so.
April 3rd. It's Friday next week. But Good Friday, we will be at the Bearded Monk at 6 or 6:30 p.m. It's just the four candidates for mayor that night. Little DTV is hosting that at the Bearded Monk. I've heard the format for this particular forum is going to be really cool, which is why I'm recommending this one because uh, there's going to be just four questions, and there's going to be like a 2 minute response from each candidate and then a discussion around that. And so there's going to be about 20 minutes per question that is mostly discussion among the candidates. So instead of getting those sort of canned 2 minute responses from each candidate, there is going to be more interaction. I think it will be really helpful to see how all of us respond to questions and respond to discussion with one another.
Yeah,
I
that'll
think it'll be
be
very insightful.
awesome. I
Yeah.
definitely look forward to that one.
And
Well,
they're
thank
nice
you.
drinks.
Yes,
So
exactly. The Monk is always a place to hang out. Thank you
yes,
so
yes.
much for taking the time out today. Thank you so much, Angela,
Absolutely.
and
Thank
I
you
will
for
link
setting
your
it up.
Facebook and all that stuff below.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
But yeah, that is it for us today. You have a good one.
Thank you.